Dear Leo, beautiful fire of the Zodiac. Let me begin with a truth too powerful to ignore. You didn't land on this video by chance. If you're here right now, it means something deep within you, something ancient and luminous has been quietly guiding you back to a truth your soul has always known. Today's message is not just a horoscope. It is a soul transmission. Because someone knew. Someone felt it the moment you were born. Your mother. She may have never spoken it aloud, perhaps not even fully understood it herself, but she sensed it. That your birth was no ordinary moment. That when you took your first breath, something far greater than words stirred the air. And ever since, you've carried that sacred stillness inside you, even in the loudest rooms, even when the world tried to tell you otherwise. Tell me, Leo. Have you ever felt like your name doesn't quite belong to you? Like there's another sound, a vibration you've been waiting for, something only your soul would recognize? Have you ever wondered why people are drawn to you, even when you say nothing at all? Why your silence sometimes speaks louder than their noise? That's not a coincidence. That's energy. That's presence. That's soul memory beginning to stir. You see, Leo, you weren't just born. You were summoned. Not to fit in but to awaken. Not to be understood but to remember. And your mother, even if she never said a word, felt that. She saw it in your eyes when you were just a baby, something too vast, too divine, to be explained. So she loved you in silence. She protected something she didn't have words for. And now, that silence is ready to break. Here on Eternal Mindfulness, we honor that moment, the quiet miracle that was your arrival. And we're here to help you remember what the world forgot to tell you. If your heart is already responding, even just a flicker, I invite you to stay. What I'm about to share with you may just change the way you look at your life, your name, and your destiny. Through a lens of cosmic energy, soul codes, and a gentle touch of Buddhist wisdom, we'll walk into the very vibration you were born under. But first, let me take a moment to express my deepest gratitude for your presence here. Every like, every comment, every moment you choose to spend with this channel brings more light into our growing spiritual family. Your support doesn't just fuel Eternal Mindfulness, it empowers us to share more soul-aligned messages with those who need them most. And trust me, Leo, you'll want to stay until the very last minute of today's journey. Because what the universe is unveiling for you is nothing short of extraordinary. If any part of you feels like this message was meant for you, comment below and write, "I've always known there was more to my story." Let this be your soul's quiet affirmation. And now, let's step together into what your mother felt but never said. They say that not everything real can be recorded, and not everything true can be measured. On the day you were born, Leo, something unfolded that slipped beyond the grasp of machines, charts, or hospital logs. No one captured it with a camera. No nurse took notes on it. But it happened, as quietly as breath and as powerful as light. And somehow, you've always known. Your arrival wasn't just a passage into the world. It was a crossing from one state of being into another, from the hidden into the visible, from the potential into the embodied. And in that crossing, someone or something stood with you. Not to interfere. Not to intervene. But to witness. To steady the energy. To recognize what even your mother couldn't quite name but deeply felt. Some call it divine. Others dismiss it as a trick of the mind. But when you really listen, beyond the noise of the world, you'll feel that presence again, like a warmth behind your spine when no one's in the room, like a calm that enters your chest without explanation. It wasn't a being made of matter. It was presence made of rhythm. A frequency so steady, it could only be felt by the part of you that existed before memory. And it came for you. You were born under the sign of Leo, ruled by the sun, the source of light, the heart of the sky, the unshakable center. But even the sun needs a moment before it rises. And you, too, had a guardian in that moment of emergence. Something held space for your first breath, as if the world needed a pause, a deep inhale, to welcome what you were bringing. Imagine a mountain watching the first flame rise. That was the energy. Not grandiose, but grounded. Not loud, but undeniable. You may wonder why this matters. What does it change now? Why revisit something so far in the past? Because presence leaves imprint. And imprints don't vanish, they echo. They shape the way you walk into rooms, the way you hold your silence, the reason others turn to look before they even understand why. There is something foundational in you. And it began there. In some traditions, it's said that the moment of birth is not just the start of life, it's the revealing of what's already been carried through lifetimes. And so, certain arrivals ripple more deeply through time. They carry codes, not in the way of secrets, but in the way of keys. Keys to memories you weren't supposed to remember too soon. Keys to strengths you'd only access when the time was right. Now is that time. What stood with you then still walks with you now. Not as a figure, but as a current. Not to control your steps, but to remind you, you came here with design, not accident. You were witnessed into being. And that witnessing is still unfolding through your every moment of courage, your quiet moments of pause, your choice to keep moving even when no one claps. It's easy to feel alone in this world, especially for someone like you, who carries so much light. But light that is steady, not flashy, often goes unnoticed at first. Until it becomes the only thing guiding others home. And maybe that's why your presence was so carefully welcomed. Not with fanfare, but with stillness. Because you weren't meant to perform. You were meant to embody. Not everything about you needs to be explained. But it deserves to be honored. And if right now, you feel something stirring not in the mind, but in the quiet space behind your heart, then you are already remembering. You don't need to name it. Just feel it. The same way it felt you, long before your story began. Some people are born to blend in, others, to burn brighter. And then there are a few like you, Leo, who never really had a choice. From the very beginning, you were carrying something ancient and undeniable. It wasn't something you could point to, or explain to the people around you. But it was always there. A kind of intensity. A presence that made rooms shift, even when you said nothing. A quiet gravity that drew eyes, drew energy, drew expectations. You didn't ask for it, but it followed you, faithfully, like the sun behind your name. As a child, you may have noticed how adults paused before speaking to you, how other kids either clung to your warmth or pulled away without knowing why. You weren't loud all the time, but your energy was unmistakable. There was something about you that didn't feel ordinary. And that wasn't arrogance. That wasn't pride. That was light, still learning how to inhabit form. In astrology, Leo is the sovereign not because it commands, but because it radiates. You weren't made to dominate. You were made to embody dignity. And dignity is quiet. It doesn't raise its voice to be heard. It doesn't demand space. It is the space. When people misread your stillness for pride, when they confused your self-respect with ego, it wasn't your fault. It was simply that your energy spoke a language their hearts hadn't yet remembered. There's a teaching that says wisdom speaks in silence, but only to ears that know how to listen. And many never learn to hear that frequency not because they're wrong, but because your presence shines a little too close to truth. And truth, when uninvited, can feel like a disruption. You've spent years trying to navigate that contrast, the pull to be true to yourself and the push to make others feel comfortable with who you are. And in that space between, something soft and powerful has been growing. A quiet inner knowing. A sacred restraint. The choice, time and time again, to remain authentic rather than accepted. And whether or not anyone ever told you, that is courage. You see, the real nobility of Leo isn't in attention. It's in the weight you carry when no one is watching. It's in the moments you bite your tongue not out of fear, but out of understanding. It's in the fire you hold back, not because it isn't there, but because you've learned that not every flame needs to prove its heat. There's a story told about tigers who walk like cats, not because they've forgotten their power but because they've mastered it. Your story is like that. You are not too much. You were born magnified. Born to carry a light most people haven't trained their eyes to see. And because of that, you've walked a path where misunderstanding has sometimes been more familiar than support. But don't let that twist your reflection. Don't shrink the space inside you just because others couldn't hold it. Because the truth is, you are not intimidating. You are illuminating. And those who fear that light often haven't yet learned how to meet their own. So if you've ever felt the need to hide your brightness, to dull your honesty, to second-guess your power, let this be a turning point. A gentle remembrance. You are not here to tone yourself down. You are here to root more deeply into your fire, not flare up for show, but to become the warmth others can gather around when the world goes cold. You've always felt different, Leo. That's because you are. Not because you're flawed, but because you're rare. And nothing rare ever feels familiar at first. There are moments in life that ask not to be spoken, not because they are unimportant, but because they are too real to be reduced by language. When your mother held you for the first time, Leo, she didn't need anyone to tell her you were extraordinary. She didn't need science or tradition to validate what her heart instantly understood. Something vast had entered the world through you. Not a title, not a destiny she could predict, but a presence, a weightless, radiant pulse that pressed gently into her chest and made her breath catch. Not out of fear, but out of reverence. There's a kind of knowing that bypasses logic. It's the kind that arises when time seems to stretch for just a second, when every part of you grows still without reason, when your senses become too full to hold a word. That's what happened the moment she looked into your eyes. She didn't see a baby in the way others might have. She saw a vastness behind the stillness. A kind of remembering. A quiet intensity that whispered of something older than both of you. Some people would say she imagined it. That she was overwhelmed, or tired, or simply caught up in the emotion of birth. But anyone who has ever stood in the presence of something deeply true knows what that kind of trembling feels like. It's the same stillness that enters a room before an irreversible decision. The same calm that wraps itself around you just before a great loss or a great beginning. Your mother didn't imagine you. She recognized you. And that recognition didn't need to be spoken because truth often asks only to be held. But holding something sacred comes with its own kind of silence. She may have never told you, may have never said, there was something about you I couldn't explain. Not because she didn't want to, but because even trying to speak it felt like reducing it. Some truths feel like sand in your hands. The more you try to hold them with force, the more they slip away. So instead, she honored it the only way she could, through silence, through presence, through the simple act of watching you breathe. That kind of silence is not the absence of love. It's love in its purest form, a kind of humility before the mystery. And this isn't something only seen in birth. It's a quality found in moments of deep awareness, when the mind finally steps aside and something wiser watches through your eyes. Sometimes it takes a lifetime to realize what was being offered in those moments. But they remain. Like seeds. Like soft echoes. Waiting for the moment you're quiet enough to hear them again. If you've ever wondered why your mother seemed distant at times, why she grew quiet in your presence when you needed words, this may be part of that answer. She wasn't retreating. She was bowing. And bowing doesn't always look like devotion. Sometimes it looks like uncertainty. Like awe. Like silence that's been mistaken for coldness, but was always rooted in something deeper, the awareness that she was standing near a flame that didn't come from her, but came through her. So if you've ever felt that your mother held something back, perhaps it wasn't from fear. Perhaps it was because she knew that what she felt could never fully belong to her. And maybe now, Leo, you are finally ready to claim it for yourself, not through answers, but through stillness. The same stillness that made her hands tremble. The same stillness that speaks when nothing else can. There are names we answer to, and then there are names that awaken something in us. You've likely heard your name spoken thousands of times in your life. Perhaps in classrooms, across family gatherings, on documents, even whispered by those who once loved you. And yet, there may be moments when that name, the one printed, official, known, feels like it only touches the surface. It doesn't echo. It doesn't land in your chest. It identifies you, but it doesn't reach you. That quiet dissonance is not confusion. It is a calling. From a cosmic perspective, each soul carries a frequency, a vibration that is entirely its own. It's not given by parents or culture or language. It's felt, not pronounced. Heard without sound. When you were born, Leo, you entered the world with a rhythm so specific, so inherently yours, that it vibrated through the space around you like a soft chord being struck in a great hall. That vibration was your first name, not in letters, but in resonance. And this is why, at times, the names others use may feel like placeholders. Useful, yes. Functional, yes. But not entirely accurate. Because what they are calling is your form. What your inner being responds to is much deeper. It's why certain music moves you in ways you can't explain, or why you've dreamt of voices you've never heard in waking life. Somewhere in the background of your awareness, there's a hum you've been trying to remember. Not with your ears, but with your being. This kind of remembering doesn't come through thought. It comes through stillness. In ancient teachings, it is said that when the mind quiets and the self becomes transparent, truth doesn't arrive, it reveals. There is nothing to chase. Nothing to invent. You simply become silent enough for what is already there to rise to the surface. Your true name isn't something you need to find. It's something that finds you the moment you stop pretending you've forgotten. For Leo, a sign ruled by the sun, your very presence is a signal. You were never here to echo someone else's frequency. You were born to radiate your own. And yet, somewhere along the way, the world taught you to answer quickly, respond automatically, conform softly to the rhythm around you. That training might have made life smoother on the surface, but underneath, you've always known. There's a part of you that only turns toward the sound that knows you. When someone calls your name and you flinch, or pause, or feel like you've only partially arrived, that is not resistance. That is memory. Not of words, but of tone. Of the subtle imprint left at the very beginning, when life whispered its first recognition of you. You don't need to rename yourself. This isn't about erasing an identity. It's about uncovering the one that never needed permission. The one that breathes when you're alone. The one that stirs when certain songs play, when you enter certain rooms, when someone looks at you without needing explanation. That's when the memory of your true name begins to stir again, not as a label, but as a vibration. And when you tune into it, not only do you remember who you are, but everything around you begins to remember you, too. Sometimes protection doesn't arrive with grand gestures. Sometimes it slips in quietly, like light finding its way through the smallest crack. Throughout your life, Leo, there have likely been moments you can't explain, times when you were about to break, but something shifted. A phone call came at the right moment. A stranger offered kindness without reason. A sudden sense of calm washed over you in the middle of chaos. And maybe you brushed it off, called it coincidence, or simply moved on. But deep down, part of you knew, there was something else at work. Something precise. Something steady. You've never been unguarded, even when you felt alone. And this protection didn't come with a face or a name. It didn't speak in words. It moved through events. It shaped outcomes. It whispered through timing. You might have called it luck, but that would be selling it short. Because what you've experienced is something closer to alignment. Like the universe has remembered your steps before you've taken them. Leo, ruled by the sun, carries a type of magnetism that doesn't need to be trained, it simply is. Your ability to lead, to hold space, to center attention without demanding it, doesn't come from effort. It comes from inheritance. It's something you've carried long before this life. That presence isn't a performance. It's a frequency. And frequencies don't force. They resonate. And what resonates draws support, whether seen or unseen. In certain wisdom traditions, it's understood that the path we walk is both shaped by our actions and softened by the echoes of past steps, not just from this lifetime, but from all that came before. These echoes often return not as memories, but as impressions. They live in instinct. In that moment you pause before a wrong turn. In that sense of certainty when everything around you is unsure. They guide not by command, but by quiet momentum like a current beneath the surface, gently redirecting your course. It's no surprise, then, that you've often found yourself landing on your feet, even when everything seemed stacked against you. You felt the weight of challenges, yes. But also the subtle lift of something helping you carry it. That's not luck. That's legacy. You carry within you the stored intention of lives lived with courage. Decisions made with integrity. And because of that, the path continues to open for you not without resistance, but never without support. The energy that surrounds you isn't random. It responds to you, just as you respond to it. When you act with clarity, it sharpens. When you trust, it expands. And when you forget, it waits not to punish, but to realign. This is not a force that shields you from pain. It's one that helps you rise when pain visits. It doesn't prevent the fall. It reminds you that you're more than the fall. And when you stand back up, that same light stands with you. If you've ever felt like you didn't earn the second chance you were given, or didn't understand why something worked out when it shouldn't have, remember this. Your soul did the work long before your mind could comprehend it. The strength you show now isn't new. It's remembered. And the protection you've received isn't just for survival, it's been laying the ground for your becoming. You were never walking this road empty-handed. And you were never meant to do it all alone. Every time you've been lifted, it wasn't by accident. It was a quiet promise being kept, one made long ago, and honored again each time you choose to keep walking. If you've made it here, Leo, it means some part of you has already begun to remember, not through thoughts or words, but through resonance. Through that quiet hum behind the heart. Through the pause you felt while listening. Through the way your body responded to truths too subtle to explain but too deep to ignore. And maybe that's all you ever needed, not a name, not approval, not a definition, but recognition. The kind that doesn't seek to define you, but instead affirms what you've always carried inside. You were never meant to follow the map. You are the compass. And when you doubt, it's not because you are lost, it's because you're recalibrating to a frequency others may not even hear. So now the question becomes, what will you do with what's been stirred awake? Will you walk away from this moment as if nothing just shifted? Or will you hold space for the possibility that something inside you has always known and that today, it was finally spoken aloud? You don't have to change everything overnight. You don't have to be more. In fact, this journey isn't about becoming. It's about uncovering. Stripping back the layers of labels and expectations that were never truly yours. Returning to the center, the place where your mother once looked at you, quietly trembling, because she saw something she could never describe. A stillness. A power. A presence that needed no introduction. That moment didn't disappear. It's still inside you, waiting to be lived. So ask yourself, what would your life look like if you no longer tried to fit into names that were never designed to contain you? If you stopped needing others to understand the light you hold, and instead, simply lived it fully, quietly, boldly? What becomes possible when you trust that the moments that shaped you, protected you, whispered to you were never random? That they were signs along the path back to yourself? This isn't just a message. It's an invitation. A soft knock on the soul's door. And whether you answer it in stillness, in movement, in reflection, or in fire is completely up to you. But if your heart is stirring, if something in your chest feels a little more alive than it did before this video began, then write it down. Speak it into being. Or share it in the comments below. Maybe start with something simple like, "I'm ready to remember who I've always been." That one sentence, spoken with sincerity, could shift more than you know. And if this message touched you even quietly, don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness. Every action you take helps bring this message further, helps awaken more lights like yours, and builds a community where truth doesn't need to shout to be heard. Thank you, from the deepest part of my heart, for spending your time here with me today. Your presence means more than you know. And Leo, beloved flame of the Zodiac, don't let the world dim what it can't yet understand. You were never meant to be called. You were meant to call something forth. The world doesn't give you your name. You were born with it, in silence, in light. And now it's time to live it.